Welcome, dear students. Today, our topic of discussion is the new social order, the emergence of jatis. In our previous lecture, we discussed about the Varna, different theories regarding the origin of this institution and its impact on the society. In today's lecture, we shall discuss about the emergence of jatis. Before discussing topic, let me briefly discuss the main objectives of today's topic are to know about the emergence of various jatis, to know about the functioning of different jatis, to know about the changes in the social structure during early medieval India. Every facet of the Indian society underwent significant changes in the early medieval period. Such changes had an effect on the Varna system, which caused society to shift from being Varna to Jati based. As a result, the number of jatis increased, becoming a defining characteristic of the time, and the binary of Divijay and Adivijay was abandoned by the society. This growth of Mishra jatis or mixed castes was accelerated by combinations and permutation within the Varna system. This is corroborated by other sources including Rajtarangani, a Kashmiri chronicle from the 11th century. Jati established hierarchies with different levels. Three types were established at the intermixing plank: Uttama Samkara, Madhyama Samkara, and Adama Samkara. Simple sedentary communities were turned into more sophisticated endogamous tribes via the Jati system. The Jati system had occupational, indigenous, and non-indigenous groups on various levels. Along with caste, Gotras continued to proliferate during this time, reaching a maximum of 500 by the 14th century CE. Now let us discuss about proliferation of Brahman Varna. The Brahmanas did not remain a cohesive or monolithic group. A number of Gotras, Pravaras, Vamshas, Pakshas, Anvayas, Gannas, Gamis, etc. were separated into them. The words Shrutiya, Acharya, Prohita, Pandita, Maharaja, Pandita, Pataka, Tripati, Divedin, Trivedin, Chaturvedin, Dikshita, Yajnika, Shukla, Agnihotrin, Avasathika, and Avasthin are among the descriptions used in. In addition, they suggest that their identities changed in accordance with their various territorial origins, pedigree or lineage, schools of Vedic learning, and priestly responsibilities, among other factors. Despite these variations, they maintained their Varna identity. The early medieval era saw a massive rise in number of Gotras as a result of the expansion of Brahman subcastes. Due to the north-south binary, two distinct groups of Brahmans emerged, known as the Pancha Dravidas, the southern group, and the Pancha Godas, the northern group. Their territorial ties were restricted to the significant educational institutions they belonged to and even to their home communities. For instance, the Brahmanas were divided into a number of subcastes based on their gamis and mullahs in Bengal and Mithila. By controlling the land rituals and sculptures, they maintained their position at the top of early medieval society. The expansion of regional states benefited Brahmins as well. The Brahmins were patronized by the newly emerging ruling families in the quest for authority and legitimacy in exchange for fabricating ancestry lines connecting them to epic and Puranic heroes and goddesses and offering large sacrifices on their behalf. The Brahmanas came to dominate political thought and serve as its justifiers. They received land along with legal, administrative, and financial privileges. Such land transfers were made jointly or institutionally as well as individually. The main recipients of land concessions were the Brahmins and their religious institutions, including temples and mathas. The growth of polities accelerated the distribution of land grants to new areas and gave rise to a special class of landowners who were neither feudatories nor farmers in the sense that they benefited from land and its income without tilling or paying tax or tribute to the ruler. They effectively became feudal lords without the associated duties. From the early medieval ages onwards, the Brahmins were assimilated into rural or agrarian life, and there they became the dominant landowners or ruler landed nobility. They gained influence by receiving land grants, migrating, managing Brahminical temples and monasteries, and establishing connections with the aristocracy. They served as catalysts for the evolution of the subcontinent's many societies. Through land grants and migrations, they deeply integrated themselves during this time into the ruler society. According to a study of land grants, the Brahmanas were the donis in the majority of the cases. They contributed to the spread of agriculture by being present in both agarharas and non-agarhara village. They played a crucial role in establishing new settlements as well as introducing caste and class systems. It is uncertain whether they worked the land themselves or not, but it is evident that they joined the peasant household. They became landed magnates who exercised their power in alliance with other social classes like the Mahatamas, Kutumbinas, Kayasthas, etc. As a result, their power, which was based on rituals, sculptures, and territory, increased further. On the other hand, the ruling class used Brahmins to reassert their power in rural areas, which further subinfeudated ruler society. The growth of regional polities also aided them in raising their stature by granting them significant privileges that include a wide range of sources, resources, and rights in addition to land concessions. In the process, they both gave each other legitimacy. The Brahmins had established their place in rural life thanks to their control over abundant resources and labor. Migration networks, kinship links, intellectual standing, and royal ties all increased the scope of their dominance. During this time, Brahminical religious complexes or centers spread over the subcontinent. The prevalence of Brahmanism in rural areas boosted the priestly class significance in auspicious ceremonies like Vartas and Prayaschitas. As compensation for their assistance to common people, they also got dakshina and dana in addition to land gifts. The Brahmanas had new opportunities as a result of the decline in Vedic sacrifice practices. A favorable environment for the Brahmins to pursue non-religious activities like agriculture, trade, administrative and military services, etc. were created through land grants, migrations, state establishments and agrarian development. The epigraphic and literary sources are replete with instances of Brahman engaging in a wide range of activities. Disapprovingly, Shamindra's Dasha Avatar Charita, 11th century CE, depicts some Brahmans as adhering to the degrading professions of artisans, dancers, merchants of wine, clarified butter, salt, etc., and other Brahmans as becoming degraded for forsaking their holy obligations. This does not imply that they abandoned their priestly vocation. Nevertheless, they continued to get a good source of income from the growth of devotional cults, worship, pilgrimages, vows, penances, and the recitation of the Puranas. Due to their connections to the aristocratic ruling class, feudatories, land grants, and other forms of gifts, they amassed significant wealth and reputation. In addition to adopting agriculture, which was Vaishya Shudra principal line of work, the Brahmins also engaged in a number of unconventional vocations such as trade. The character of the play Mircha Kartika Chauradatta is a pious Brahman by caste and a trader by profession. It cannot be said that all priestly class members lived in worldly prosperity. Some of them also engaged in inferior forms of labor. As the Jajmani system evolved, the Brahmins also became immobile and stayed affixed to regional social groups that gave them patronage in return of using their services. The Brahminical texts did not acknowledge the service of Brahmins to certain mixed castes. The position of the mixed castes they served was declared to be degraded or pitata for those who served. Al-Biruni also makes reference to inferior Brahmins of Iranian descent known as Maga or Sakadipi Brahmins. There was both upward and downward mobility due to sheer variety of occupations and the obvious gradation of status, including Raja Brahmanas, Kshatriya Brahmanas, Vaishya Brahmanas, and even Shudra Brahmanas. A portion of the Brahmins relocated from the landed nobility acquired sphere of influence and rose to the rank of the ruling Kshatriya elite. They abandoned their claim to be Brahmins and solely asserted their Kshatriya ancestry because the Brahman-Kshatriya combination was not an open position. Because of their Brahman ancestry and subsequent adoption of the Kshatriya position, the newly emergent royal dynasties of Rajasthan, Chahmanas, Pratyaharas, and Guhilas, initially claimed heritage from the marriage of two Varnas. But after they were established, they entirely renounced their Brahman status. As a result, we can see that the early medieval period saw a rise in the complexity and fluidity of the Brahman position due to growth in the fields of economies and polities, as well as acculturation and integration in the Middle Ages. Hierarchies and distinctions among Brahmins resulted in the creation of numerous subcastes of Brahmins. Brahmins emerged as one of the wealthy castes in the Indian subcontinent as a result of the exploration of new land through land grants and the integration of people into the Brahminical socio-economic, political and cultural fold. Now, let me talk about proliferation of Kshatriya Varna, emergence of ruling classes. There were numerous societal changes brought about by the growth of regional polities or ruling houses. In the early medieval period, new clan-based social groups known as Rajputras or Rajputs took the place of the Kshatriya Varna. 36 Rajput clans are mentioned in early medieval texts as Kumarapala Charita, Rajtarangini, etc. However, the 36 clans are listed differently in each source. While some clans, such as the Chahmanas and Pratiharas, were consistently included in the list and did not face exclusion, it is still impossible to determine if the Rajput were foreign immigrants, native tribes, earlier Kshatriyas, or Brahmins, ranked feudatories, or all of the above. The widespread presence of Rajputs suggests diverse ancestry. Such clans proliferated in western and central India starting in the 8th century and took control of political territory. Later, the same procedure was carried over repeatedly throughout the Indian subcontinent, giving it various social identities. The Rajputization process resulted in the political status of numerous new lineages. Rajputization began in the 7th and 8th centuries CE and culminated in the 12th century CE. Through mythology, marital alliances, support for Brahmins, sectarian bhakti cults, etc., Rajputs increased their power and position. Rajputs experienced a great deal of new clan formation and considerable clan division into smaller clans. The genesis of the Rajputs is explained by B.D. Chattopadhyay in relation to early medieval processes like caste expansion, the colonization of new areas through land grants, integration into supra-regional structures, expansion of agriculture, expansion of village economies, etc. On the one hand, tribes with tribal heritage like the Midas attained Rajput rank. On the other, immigrants from other countries like the Hunnas were also given the Rajput status. Numerous social groupings competed for Rajput or Kshatriya rank as a result of social mobility. The rise of new classes was a result of land grants as well. Feudal lords or nobles developed into a distinct class. 8 sorts of feudal vassals including Mahamandaleshwara, Mandalika, Mahasamanta, Samanta and Logu Samanta are provided in Bhatta Bhuvanna Deva's work, which is a work of 12th century. Aprajita Pracha, which also distributes the houses scheme in accordance with their rank. It suggests that the emperor or Samarata who holds the title of Maharaja Adhiraja Parameshwara should have 4 Mandaleshwaras, 12 Mandalikas, 16 Mahasamantas, 32 Samantas, 160 Lagu Samantas and 400 Chotrasikas in his court. All others are referred to as Rajputras. Whether these feudal lords were Kshatriyas or Rajputs cannot be determined with certainty. Rajputs were undoubtedly initially assigned a lesser rank in the feudal hierarchy. 2 military positions in the feudal hierarchy, Praharaka and Astragrahin were open to all Varnas according to Manasara. The Astragrahin, while being of lower rank, was permitted to own 500 horses, 5,000 elephants, 50,000 troops, 5,000 ladies, and one queen. Emerging social and political classes were built on the foundations of land and power. Some of the Venice classes, merchants, and artisans received feudal titles designating military and administrative roles in the early medieval period. These administrative positions raised the social standing of those who held them. Not only were Kshatriya or Rajputs given the titles like Thakur, Raut, and Naika, but also Kayasthas or people from other castes. In addition to the Rajput clan, a few foreigners were also allowed to assume new titles like Rajputra, Rajkula, or Ranaka, as opposed to feudal titles like Samanta, Mahasamanta, Lagu Samanta, etc. These titles were completely distinct. The fact that different castes still use these titles now is evidence of the phenomena from the early Middle Ages. All of the great Rajput clan, including the Pratiharas, Gohilas, and Chahamanas, asserted their place as established dynasties during the early stages of Rajput culture. By claiming sovereignty, they not only altered their political status but also claimed respectable social ancestry by claiming the Rajput status. They made up their family trees and asserted that they were Kshatriyas with a legendary past. Rajputization, a broad societal process, led to the rise of Rajput clan in the 11th and 12th centuries CE. The process of the Rajputs' population growth was also accelerated by the formation of sub-clans or minor clans from the main clans. The binary division between pure and other Kshatriyas became an important feature of the 12th century CE, attested by many texts and inscriptions to segregate superior clan among the divergent ruling elites and disfavor others. Numerous literature and inscription witness to the significance of this binary distinction between pure and other Kshatriyas, which was used to distinguish superior clan among the various ruling elites and to disfavor others in the 12th century CE. Now let us discuss about proliferation of the Vaishya Varna. The Vaishya Varna underwent changes as well in the early medieval era. The Vaishya Varna now includes a variety of occupations due to the proliferation of castes. During this time, the term Vaishya evolved to mean merchant or vanij. Vaishyas were compelled to abandon the conventional responsibilities prescribed by Shruti literature as a result of the expansion of agriculture and the obvious relationship of Shudras with the industry. We have references to their so-called Vanij Grama villages. The growth of artisanal industries and crafts, particularly those involving in gems, pearls, metals, woven clothes, and perfumes, resulted in the creation of the Vanij Jati. By the early medieval era, the Vanij identity had become predominant and people had abandoned their Varna identity. Some Vanij families from western India became wealthy and began supporting religious and cultural activities. The Siadoni inscription from the 9th century describes a salt merchant or Nimaka Vanija whose father was also Nimaka Vanija, who made numerous offerings to temples before ultimately joining the Nimaka Jati. Due to this, a hereditary vocation became associated with Jati rather than Varna. Now we will be talking about proliferation of the Shudra Varna. The fourth Varna saw significant change during the early medieval period as well. Additionally, early medieval processes contributed to the rise of low or inferior Shudra Jatis or mixed castes. Such a sizable group does not emerge uniformly or statically. While some new names were occasionally added, some existing ones were kept. The Bengali Brahmava Varta Purana, which was written between the 10th and 15th century CE, lists 17 Sat Shudra Jatis and numerous Asat Shudra Jatis with Patita and Adhama titles that refer to their unclean or untouchable condition. 36 mixed castes or mixed Shudras with non-Brahman status were recorded in the Bengali Brihad Dharma Purana from the 12th 13th century. 22 Uttama, 12 Madhyama and 9 Adhama or Antiyaja categories were also used to further separate them. Earlier on in the medieval era, 36 seems to have become a stereotype, especially in relation to caste and class. The early medieval literature made great use of the 36 Rajput clans. In the early medieval period, there were thousands of jatis, or there were too many to count. The Vishnu Dharmotra Purana, written in the 8th century CE, mentions the beginning of numerous castes. Zhuangzang, a Chinese traveler, also makes mention of a number of classes. Now we will be talking about the untouchables. Untouchables were occasionally referred to as the fifth Varna as a result of some groups being positioned at the bottom of the social scale. They were subjected to severe socio-cultural segregation and discrimination under the Varna Jati regime. The idea dates back to the later Vedic era. They were first identified as Chandala, Magadha and Polkasa around 600 BCE. Whether it was used at that time or not cannot be said with certainty, but it is clear that they received different treatment. Around 200 CE, the early Dharma Sutras and Manu Simriti gave this idea a clear form. The Brahmanical, Buddhist and Jain writings all consider the term Chandala as a synonym for untouchable. In addition to Chandala, Shupaka and Antayavasayan were also declared sources of pollution and subjected to numerous limitations. They were also given poor or immoral jobs like being cremators, garbage collectors, etc. In the early medieval era, untouchability became more prevalent. Aspirsha was initially employed in Brahmanical law texts like Vishnu Simriti and Kathayana Simriti. There were additional tribes included on the list, but Chandala and Shaupaka were still subject to harsher taboos. Additionally, they were distinguished from Shudras. The total social, occupational, and physical segregation of Chandalas is also attested to by the Chinese traveler Fahian. Buddhist and Jain sculptures likewise treated the subject in the same manner. Untouchability peaked in the 12th century. As Brahminical society spread into new regions, it brought other occupational groups and tribes under its untouchable umbrella. Ritual purity and impurity were more clearly defined, and it was declared that it can be easily transmitted through contact, water, shadow, and food. The hardest affected were the Chandalas. Some already existing taboo groups such as Charmakara, Rajika, Buruda, Nata, Chakri, Dauji, Shondika, hunters, fishermen, butchers, executioners, and scavengers were also labeled untouchables. For the first time, beef eaters or Gavasana were deemed untouchables. Because they rejected the Brahminical system, a number of indigenous tribes, including Bilas, Kaivartas, Midas, Kohlikas, were also made untouchables. However, they do not receive the same treatment as the more common untouchables like Chandalas and Supaka. In all, the Brahminical writings, Kaivarta and Nishada, were not listed as being untouchables. Due to their hostility to the Brahminical system, several agricultural castes were also referred to as untouchables. Additionally, efforts were made to classify untouchables according to the level of untouchability associated with various groupings. Asat Shudras, in particular, were sometimes referred to as untouchables along with Shudras. In nutshell, the untouchability was employed as a tool of exclusion on the one hand and as a tool of dissent, suppression on the other. However, not all untouchables were shut out of society. Several early medieval Brahminical texts offer excellent examples. Untouchables were allowed entry into temples by the Simrit Yarthasara, the Simriti Chandrika of Atri Simriti, and Devana Bhatta permits mixing with untouchables on several occasions, including as during religious processions, festivals, and times of national emergency and invasion. Rajtarangni likewise offers contradictory image in which Dombas and Chandalas appear to be significant figures in the court politics. Kalhana, on the other hand, also exposes the horror of untouchability as he grows older. Now, we will be talking about the emergence of new jatis, the Kayasthas and the Vedyas. Another significant social development of the time is the rise of Kayasthas as a community of scribes. The proliferation of land grants gave rise to a new class of scribes, document writers, and record keepers. They were referred to by a number of names, including Kayastha, Karana, Karanika, Adikir, Pushtapalaka, Chitragupta, Lekhaka, Divira, etc. They comprised one class of Kayasthas From among these a dozen type. Upper Varna literate individuals were initially appointed as Kayastha. Afterwards, document writing became an open profession for everybody. When a profession became hereditary, it became the form of a caste whose members engaged in marriage, exogamy, and class endogamy. Due to their link to both Divijas and Advijas or Shudras, the exact Kayastha Varna affiliation could not be determined. Dear students, it was all about today's lecture regarding the new social order, the emergence of Jatis. Hope you have understood it well. See you next time with a new topic. Till then, take care and goodbye.